Like I said, I was going to give you my card, so here it is. Here's the valuation ticket, which is for promoting a non-compliant event. It is $230.
Are you aware that Section 2 of the Charter of Rights defends my freedom of speech and freedom of press?
Correct.
Right? Are you aware that health measures do not supersede the Charter of Rights?
This hasn't been decided by the courts yet.
Okay, but
When the last two Fight the Fines cases I happen to cover are both ones that show how much infringement of our freedom of press is happening, it also shows how much trouble Canada is in. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and in my last Fight the Fines report, you met Donald Smith, the disabled independent journalist who was fined a whopping $880 while covering the mass arrests that have been happening to peaceful protesters in Toronto. Now, you're not going to believe this. Today, I'm showing you another interview with yet another disabled journalist who has also been fined, this time in BC, for publishing information about peaceful protests in his weekly coffee paper. If you don't know what Fight the Fines is, it's where we at Rebel News, by the help of our amazing supporters like you, provide people with freedom-fighting lawyers who are dedicated to fighting their tyrannical COVID-19 fines for free. You can contribute or tell us your fine story at fightthefines.com. Now, here is my interview with Robert Dunn, yet another journalist who was punished for publishing the other side of the story.
Like I said, I was going to give you my card, so here it is. Here's the valuation ticket, which is for promoting a non-compliant event. It is $230. All the information to dispute the tickets are at the back. And the court hearing could be November if it decides so.
okay, and I just have a couple questions.
Come on.
Sorry for this one. Do the rules of civil procedure apply to the living man and the living woman? I'm telling you that they don't, and I'm not going to enter into a contract with you. Sorry, that's just an official statement. Are you aware that Section 2 of the Charter of Rights defends my freedom of speech and freedom of press?
Correct.
Right? Are you aware that health measures do not supersede the Charter of Rights?
This hasn't been decided by the courts yet.
Okay, but
So tell us a little bit about Valley Peak. How long have you been doing it, and what does it offer your community?
The Valley Peak, it's a 8-page community coffee paper, and I keep people posted on what events are happening within the Valley. I have a joke on every page, a calendar. So people put ads in my paper for upcoming events or for their businesses. And I also write articles to try to promote fundraisers, dances, whatever's going on, hockey games. So I've been doing that. The paper itself has been there 19 years, and I've been doing it for about 15 years.
Oh, wow. A long time. And this is a rather small community, correct? So I imagine an event like a rally or a protest is pretty big news there, is it not?
Yes, our community's 2,000 people or so. It just has one main drive through it. So, everyone can see what's going on, but it's good to have people know ahead of time what might be coming up. So yeah, it's a big thing in the community. With the current narrative out there, a lot like to think it isn't a big thing in the community, but yes, it is.
It is. It's definitely related to current events. So tell us about the first police interaction you've had in this small town, I guess it is, and tell us a little bit about that.
The police have had the bylaw officer attending our rallies, sort of keeping track, and everything's been going very well. But I have been writing about the upcoming rallies in the paper, and yes, the phone rang, and it was the sergeant here in the Valley, and He was asking if I was an organizer of the events because I obviously write about them. And I said, no, I'm just writing and telling the community about them. And then he listed off, I could get a $230 fine for attending or standing too close or whatever. He listed off a whole bunch of fines that I really lost focus because I was going into panic mode.
Right.
And so then, that was it for that phone call. I still, from there on, I was afraid to go to the rallies, but I still continued. I have a health issue where I can only go every second week because I'm on a dialysis machine at my house. So I try to make sure I show up every second week. And
Wow. So the intimidation worked a little bit, the intimidation of the fines. You kind of attended less, and then you have health issues as well. So let us know a little bit about how it felt as a professional in the media field after 15 years of writing this paper, having authorities threaten you with fines and punishments for doing what you do.
it was, surprising totally, because it's such a community friendly, positive energy newspaper, but I have been putting quite a few articles questioning some of the lockdowns and the other narratives. So it was surprising they went to that level. There is another paper in the community that, the chief medical officer puts his articles in about everyone wear masks and everyone locked down. And I questioned some of that narrative. So I was surprised and very intimidated, scared totally, really, and not sure what to do next, because I always just felt I was doing what was right and truthful.
So right here, I have one of your editions, and it starts off, it's the January 7th to 13th, 2021 edition. And it starts off the first, you've got that right there. Yeah. The first section of it, it has a lot of things, like you said, the events that go on is freedom rallies. And I won't read the whole thing, but you've got many people in many areas have some questions about the validity of the science behind some of the lockdown measures that are in place. Canadians are suffering from far more than a virus. I mean, I think that's a pretty reasonable paragraph. It's certainly backed by science that people are suffering in many ways. We've seen that. And what kind of treatment did you get from a post like that? Because you've had more than one interaction with the police over what you're putting in your paper.
Yeah, so specifically, right after this issue, a corporal from the detachment called me asking to meet with me, and I asked why, and he said he wanted to give me a ticket. And what for? And well, for an ad in my paper, he said, originally. So, I said, well, it's promoting the rally. And I said, it's a paid ad from this group. And so then, and he knows of my health issues. So I was actually literally a day away from an oncology appointment, which determines if I get a kidney transplant. And he's, I don't want to bother you during your dialysis, so I don't want to just show up at your house. And I said, well, it was a day that I go out and deliver. I said, I will not be home today anyways. I can't meet with you. So then the next day, and I said, you can't nail me for an ad in my paper.
Right. I mean, this is Canada, right?
Yeah.
It's not communist China. So how is this even a thing?
Yes. And so then the next day, literally during dialysis and an hour and a half prior to my oncology, and staying up all night, pretty much vomiting, just so afraid of these police phoning me, right? It's like, they're my cancer, really. And so they phoned me the next day, the same corporal, and the same spiel, and saying he's either going to come to my house or I got to go meet with them. And this time I said, well, you can't do it for an ad. And he said, oh, it's for an article in your paper. The article is promoting a non-compliant event. So specifically for that article that you were just reading there,
So we've seen this trend. We've seen them go from what they call the education approach And then they did start fining in some of the areas, like in Toronto, they started fining organizers first. And then now we're seeing arrest after arrest in Ontario. Do you think that's going to start happening to peaceful protesters here in BC?
Oh, yes. Well, I believe the gentleman organizing, or lady in Kelowna, has faced a few pretty big fines. And, two other members of this rally have been fined. One where they came to his house, and the other lady that met them at their station. There have been 3 or 4 community members or people visiting the community that have been fined for too many people at their houses. And that's like the $2,300 fine.
Yeah.
So, yes, I believe that our members of our authorities in our community are as involved in this as anyone else is, and just because we're smaller and a bit quieter, it's just not impacting as hard as soon.
Right. Now, I like this question that you asked the officer. Actually, I've asked a similar question when a church was being fined out in Langley, BC. You asked the officer about the oath that officers take. Let's take a look.
Have you taken an oath to uphold the Constitution and the Charter of Rights?
I follow the laws
Have you
and the
taken an
orders
oath?
that are given to me.
Have you taken an oath to uphold the Constitution
I've
and the
taken an
Charter?
oath.
I need a clear answer on that.
I've taken an oath.
Okay.
All right. So you asked a really good question there. And I wonder what happens with these officers when they go home at night and lay their head on their pillow. Does it really keep them up at night? It would keep me up at night. Now, you've gotten a fine. And we have something called Fight the Fines. So at Rebel News, we've created a legal clinic of sorts with top-notch lawyers that have helped over 1,000 Canadians who are receiving tyrannical fines. In your case, you're being fined for matters of freedom of the press. This is insane. Now, you've mentioned health issues. How would you like to have some of that stress taken off of you and have one of our lawyers fight your fine on your behalf?
Yeah, that would be incredible. Definitely I'm not willing to pay that fine, and I've put in my notice of dispute. But yeah, for sure, having a lawyer who really is an expert in this field would be pretty good.
Perfect. Well, we're excited to lock arms with you, and I wouldn't be paying that fine either. You did the right thing by disputing it, and then paperwork, all of that stuff, strategy. We're going to take care of that for you at our special website called fightthefines.com. Anybody watching this, if you want to help people like Robert who are just spreading information. It is so dangerous for information to be suppressed. So if you want to be a part of that, you can head to fightthefines.com and donate there as well. One last question for you, Robert. Now, you've mentioned the health issues that you have, waiting, trying to do everything right to be on the list or you're on the list, I suppose, for a kidney transplant. Is that right? Or
the type of cancer I have, multiple myeloma, bone marrow cancer, put proteins into my blood that killed my kidneys. So I have to be cancer-free for 5 years to be on a transplant list, but for 3 years to qualify for a live donor, living donor.
right.
I do have a couple people offering, so I have a few more months to hit that 3-year thing. They don't want to put a good kidney in a machine that's still going to kill another kidney. So
Yes, well, I pray everything goes good for you there, but I imagine it's a bonus to be able to work from home when you have some health conditions on a paper. So how reliant are you on the work that you do for this paper?
This paper is, I have no retirement plan or any nest egg. I do not qualify for very much disability funding or whatever for various reasons. And this paper is it. That's all I have for my funding for whatever I do.
Well, I got to tell you, I feel like this is such a huge outreach and such a disgrace for Canadian history. We're going to be helping you fight your fines. We're going to be working with you closely. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. And I hope that the RCMP there are going to think twice before coming at you for simply spreading information. Thank you so much. We are fighting the good fight, and we need all hands on deck. If you are able to donate anything to our legal assembly, we've got like a legal clinic at this point, helping thousands of Canadians fight their tyrannical COVID-19 fines. Please head to fightthefines.com. And of course, if you've been fined, let us know about it there as well.